So what do you say we spend a little time in the garden today? All right. I tell you what, I'm close. I'm real close to putting some warm season seeds and transplants in the ground. I was looking at the weather forecast. Looks like the next 2 nights we're gonna get down to 35, and then we look pretty good. On out to March 15th, I don't see any freezing temperatures. So I think after we get through these 2 cool nights the next few days, I think we'll be good to go. So I'd say in 5 days or so, we'll be getting some warm season stuff in the ground. I've been out here all day trying to get some of these plots ready, getting cover crops cut down, getting cover crops turned over. And today I want to walk you around, kind of show you what we got going on in most of these plots here, and kind of talk about the order in which we'll be getting some of this warm season stuff in the ground. So let's start off with these 6 plots here we call the Dream Garden. We're going to skip this plot right here because on the next video we're going to try to put some English peas in the ground right there. So we're going to skip that plot. Let's go over here to where we planted our potatoes a video or 2 ago, and I want to show you we got some good signs right here. See that ground cracking right there, and that ground cracking right there, and that ground cracking right there. That means them taters are about to bust loose. Now I don't see the ground cracking in all 8 of these rows, but almost all of them. Those 2 rows on the end there where we got those German butterballs, I haven't noticed any cracks there yet, but all these other rows are just about to come up. Now I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried earlier this week. So I planted these about 10 days ago, and then about 4 days after I planted them, we got like 3.5, 4 inches of rain. And lots of rain is not really good for taters that haven't sprouted yet, because that can make them rot. But now that we see the ground cracking, I feel a lot better about it. What I did do is I came in here with my tiller and I tilled between those rows as soon as I could get in there, as soon as it was dry enough to till it, just to help it dry out a little more. Now I don't usually like to run a tiller in my plots once they've been planted. I'd usually just till these plots once or twice a year. But I ain't scared to do it if I feel like it's something I need to do to save my taters. Over here in our no-till experimental plot, there's not a whole lot going on. There's Bella. We got a row of beets here, and we got a row of spinach. These vulture beets are growing, just not super fast. I haven't been a fan of all that rain we've had in the last month or so. Same thing with the spinach. But it's there. I did side dress it with some of our complete organic fertilizer earlier and kind of scratch that into the soil, so maybe that'll give them a little jolt. The rest of this plot here's just kind of been chilling, just waiting for us to plant some winter squash and pumpkins in here. Now on our last video, when I was in the greenhouse, I told y'all a bit of a story. Not intentionally, but I did tell a story. So I told you on that video that the only things I had left to start in the greenhouse were okra and maybe some sunflowers. I completely forgot about my pumpkins and winter squash, which I do like to transplant. So I got to get those started, so then we can hopefully get some transplants in the ground in this plot come, first or second week of April. And while we're waiting on those transplants to grow out, we're going to get us several more tons of compost. Just going to put it on top of that plant debris there. There's a few weeds in there I need to get out. We're going to come in here with another heaping load of compost and continue our no-till experiment this year. This plot here has just been kind of chilling too. This is where our seedless watermelons are going to go. And on the last video, we got those started in the greenhouse. And you can see how great of a job that tarp did. This thing's not had a tarp on it in several weeks, and haven't had to worry about any weed growth, or not really had to worry about that cover crop coming back or anything. It's just sitting there ready to go when we get ready. If there are any doubts about how well that frosty berseem clover can take grazing or mowing, check this out. So this right here by this stub was mowed, scalped when we mowed the rest of this before we tarped it. And you can see there how much it grows back. So that's a great cool season cover crop to grow if you've got livestock, goats, chickens, whatever, and want to graze the cover crop after it gets up. It can certainly take some traffic and grow right back. This plot here, I just pulled back the tarp slightly so I could mow around it. But this is where we had our chickpea cover crop during the winter. Put the tarp on it to kind of extinguish that cover crop. And let me pull this back here. You can see there's some nice weed-free ground there to start with. So I'm just letting a little bit of that water there dry up more, and then I'll fold this tarp up. I won't need it for a while because we'll be planting all my plots soon. Just letting some of that water evaporate off the top of that tarp, and then we'll come in here, cultivate this one time, and we'll get all our flower transplants in the ground. They're not quite ready in the greenhouse, but they will be in a few weeks, and this plot right here is going to be ready to go for us. That's the nice thing about that tarp, man. You just set it and forget it, and then pull it back and you're ready to go. Now for this next plot, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, I'm about to do a little bit of bragging. I don't usually like to brag on these videos, but it's been a tough winter growing stuff down here. A lot of rain, a lot of colder than normal temperatures, but I got one plot that is just looking awesome. Ain't that pretty right there? 8 rows of short day onions, and man, they looking good. They didn't look that great 3 or 4 weeks ago, honestly, but when I was able to get in here and wheel hoe beside them, get some air to them roots, and I need to do it again, but I was able to get in here with a wheel hoe and cultivate a little bit, man, they popped. They greened back up, they stood up, and we're looking good. The first ones we planted, these plethora onions, making some pretty good size onions right there. Some of these other rows I need to start thinning out a little bit. I ain't got my piece of paper in front of me that tells me what all these are, but this particular variety right here, like I said, I have to look at my sheet of paper to see what it is looking particularly impressive. Man, the stalks or the necks on those are a lot thicker than some of these other varieties. Now, I think they're all gonna make pretty decent sized onions, but whatever this variety is right here, I have to check. I'll get back with you on another video, but this one here looks really, really impressive so far. Now, most of those onions there have all started bulbing to some extent, so no more fertilizer for those guys, but I have given some fertilizer recently to my elephant garlic and my leeks here. So I came in here and side dressed these with some ammonium sulfate. My elephant garlic's looking good. It's kind of turned the corner from too much of that water, too much rain. And my leeks here are looking really, really good. Still good ways to go on those guys. When I do get some compost for that no-till plot, I'm gonna come in here and I'll put me a thick layer of compost down the middle of that double row and on the sides to kind of heal up those leeks a little bit, so we get some nice big leeks when it comes harvest time. Now, as I was walking out in that allium plot just then, I realized I think it's dry enough to wheel hoe it one more time. Kind of kill some of those tiny little weeds that have formed, and aerate the soil, help it dry a little bit, get some air to them onion roots so they'll pop again. So if y'all don't mind, I promise this will only take just a minute. But let me take care of this real quick.
They say I'm acting crazy, but I just wanna lie in the sun.
All right. About 10 minutes worth of work there. We get her nice and aired out again and hopefully dried up a little bit. I tell you what, that wheel hoe has really saved my hiney and my onions heinies several times over this winter. Just being able to get in there as soon as I can get in there without making a huge mess, and lightly cultivate it just so it can air out, dry out a little bit before we get another 2-3 inches of rain, has really helped keep those onions moving along, keep them from yellowing too much. And it looks like we're going to have a pretty decent harvest of onions. Now, I haven't been able to fertilize them as much as I would have wanted to before they started bulbing, just because we have so much rain, but I think we're going to be all right. Now back over here to some other plots. We'll be planting some stuff soon. A video or two ago, we put some of this cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower in the ground. Those things are starting to grow a little bit. They've suffered from that 3 or 4 inches of rain we had, but I did get in here with the wheel hoe. Kind of same concept with the onions, just kind of help dry it out a little bit. And as soon as it dries out a little more, we'll be ready to shoot some juice to them through our drip system here. So we'll start feeding them pretty regularly, and they should pop pretty soon after that. Over here, where we had our cover crop cocktail, all kind of cool season cover crops, I've got this ready to go. This is getting squash and cucumbers first. Also gonna get some field peas, maybe some butter peas in here. And so that'll be one of the first warm season things I get in the ground, is direct seeding some squash and cucumbers over on this end. And then a few weeks later, we'll get some field peas in right here. But we tilled this in one direction, tilled it in the other direction. There's still a little bit of debris out there, but we can handle that with a wheel hoe once stuff gets up and going. It's ready to direct seed right now. And I used to kind of connect the drip systems between this plot and this plot here, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to make me a little grass walkway here between them like I do most of my other plots. I had a monster rosemary bush right here, and I enjoyed having it, but it just started getting in the way. It got so big, so I took that out earlier today. R.I.P. big rosemary bush. Anyway, we're gonna let that just have grass there, and we'll just mow that lane there, and then we'll have this plot here more separate now. This is where our sweet corn's going, and my cover crop cocktail that was here, I came in here with a mower earlier today and scalped it as low as I could scalp it. And so we'll need to cultivate that once, maybe twice, and we'll be ready for some sweet corn probably middle of March. Over here on the other side of the barn, the last two plots, I got one of our new sizes of tarps. This is 20 by 25 tarp. You see this plot's a little longer than 25 feet long, but I got it on here. I'll probably slide it down to that end the next day or two, let it kill the rest of that clover and cabbage and collard cover crop that was in there. And this guy should be ready to plant soon. This is where we're going to put our climbing butter beans. Looks like we're going to be going with the Christmas lima beans. So we're going to do an arch across the width of this plot here with some cattle panels. Just do several of them in a row, make a big long arch, let those butter beans climb all over it. We'll walk underneath it and pick them. Really looking forward to giving that a try. And then finally, this guy right here, this long skinny plot's where our nightshades are going, our non-potato nightshades. So we're putting tomatoes, peppers in here. Probably can squeeze 4 rows in here. So we had clover, forage collards, forage cabbage in here. I came in here and mowed this down. Actually, on the tail end of that plot over there, there's some big ruts where I got stuck with my lawnmower. That's, some of these plots haven't quite dried up enough yet, but I'm trying to dry them up and get ready. So I cultivated this, and it's pretty close to being ready. I don't even know if it will need it one more time. This cover crop wasn't super tall, and most of the rest of this, the wheel hoe will probably get it as we're just working this plot. So this one here is pretty ready to go with tomatoes and pepper transplants, which I have ready to go in the greenhouse. So we've got lots to do around here as far as planting goes. As soon as it dries up a little more so we can plant, and as soon as these next few cool days get out of the way. Now, I alluded to it a little bit as we were walking through all these plots, but I kind of want to give you my intended order of operations and tentative planting dates when I'm going to try to get this stuff in the ground. So the first thing we're going to plant is our squash and cucumbers. We're going to direct seed those. You can transplant them. We just always direct seed them. So squash and cucumbers direct seeded will be first. Second will be our climbing butter beans. The whole arch trellis idea we're going to do. That will be second. Third is going to be putting tomato and pepper transplants in. Hopefully, I'm aiming for around, let's say March 12th or so would be a good time, I think, to get those in the ground, or a good goal to have as far as getting those in the ground. I want them to harden off a little bit more before I put them in the ground. March 15th is kind of when I'm aiming for my sweet corn, which would be 4th, getting that in the ground, obviously direct seeding that. By around that time, my flower transplants should be ready to go in the ground. So we'll put those on that plot you saw earlier that we're waiting on the tarp to dry up on. So flower transplants will be going there. And then probably towards the end of March, early April or so, we'll get our field peas in. Field peas are more kind of heat-loving plants, so no big hurry to get those in the ground. So end of March, 1st of April on the field peas and butter peas. By that time, our watermelon transplants should be ready to go in the ground. So we'll plant our seedless watermelons over there in that plot. And then lastly will be our winter squash and pumpkins. I still got to get those transplants started. So we're at least 4 or 5 weeks out on those. So that'll be the last kind of warm season crop of this, I don't know, early spring period that we get in the ground. I don't really group sweet potatoes into this because we wait another, couple months before we get those in the ground. But for this first round of warm season crops we're planting, that's my intended schedule. Now that could change if I lose some transplants or something. Something could happen and throw off that schedule, but I like to have just kind of a plan in place, some kind of goals to hit as far as when I'm aiming to get this stuff in the ground. So that's my schedule. Now I want to hear about your schedule. In the comments below, let me know kind of your order of how you plant your warm season stuff. I'd be interested to see how it differs for some people. I know some of you guys that are south of us already got some of the stuff in the ground. Some of you guys up north are still a month or so out, but kind of give me your tentative plan for how you're going to get those things in the ground. Obviously, most people are not going to do this all in one day. Too much work to do it all in one day, so we'll have to break it up and kind of plan it out a little bit. I'll put some links below to some of the squash and cucumber varieties that we'll be planting here just in the next few days, so you can go to our website and check those out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you did enjoy this one, check out these other 2 videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.